Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be stabbed in the back by the person you trust most, right when your world is screaming in pain? I'm Alina, and tonight, while the dirt on my father's grave is still fresh, while the funeral soil is still stuck under my fingernails, my husband is walking into a luxury hotel with his mistress right in front of my face. He thinks I've lost everything. He thinks this 7-month pregnancy is a chain that will keep me silenced, broken, and compliant. But he's wrong. Dead wrong. In my hand, I'm not holding a weak goodbye. I'm holding the key to a secret empire. My father kept hidden for 35 years, a truth, powerful enough to crush everything David thinks he owns. The clock is ticking. In just a few days, his world is going to implode. And when the truth drops, the people laughing right now, they'll be on their knees begging for a forgiveness they'll never get. It's a freezing Chicago night. 3 months since I buried my dad. I'm standing in a dark parking lot, gripping the USB drive containing his final will, just 30 feet away under the glowing gold lights of the Ritz-Carlton. David and the woman he'd just got engaged to Victoria strolling through the revolving doors for a promotion party. It's a cruel mockery of our entire past. Victoria lets out a proud, loud laugh while David leans in to kiss her temple. That damn kiss. The one that's supposed to belong to his pregnant wife, standing here shivering in the shadows. I put my hand on my stomach. I can feel my baby kicking hard, like he's feeling his mother's pain. How can a human being be this heartless? I squeeze the heavy envelope in my hand like a ticking time bomb. Inside is my father's ironclad whisper. When you open this, remember that true power never shows its face until the very end. Safe deposit. Box 347A at Wells Fargo is waiting for me. You won't believe how a discarded woman like me flips the script and makes them pay for every single thing they did. Stay until the very last second, because justice isn't just about revenge. It's a lesson they will never forget. I honestly couldn't believe my eyes when, just 1 week after the funeral, David brought Victoria into our apartment. He stood there, hand in hand with his mistress, and said it with a straight face. Victoria and I are starting over. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them. It's over. I stood there 7 months pregnant with a child who will never know his grandfather. Trembling while clutching my dad's old flannel shirt, the one that still smells like lead smoke. I was paralyzed by tears watching my husband slide a ring onto another woman's finger, while the dirt from my father's grave was still under my nails from when I laid those white lilies on his casket that morning. But what shattered my heart into so many pieces I couldn't even breathe. It wasn't just watching David move on immediately. It was the envelope vibrating in my hand, the one my dying father pressed into my palm with his last bit of strength, whispering, "My little girl, when I'm gone, open this and remember, you are never alone. You are never poor, and you are never weak. I've taken care of everything." What David didn't realize as he pressed his lips against his mistress's lips that should have been comforting his pregnant wife was the true identity of the father-in-law. He treated like trash. He didn't know that every time he gaslit Alina by hiding her wallet in a kitchen drawer, under the bed, and calling her baby-brained when she panicked, Robert's sharp eyes caught every single move. David would constantly leave the doors unlocked on purpose just to blame her, slowly chipping away at her confidence. He'd even look her dead in the eye and say, "You used to be great at data analysis, but now you can only analyze the price of formula." What a waste of potential. While he was busy playing house, he was obsessed with his boss, Victoria Lang. She'd lost custody of her 16-year-old daughter because she was a workaholic, always telling herself that successful women don't need family to be happy. That inner void made it way too easy for her to fall for David's charm. Victoria also had no clue that Roberta, humble electrician who'd spent 40 years fixing broken circuits in her old shop, wasn't just an electrician. Both David and Victoria were oblivious to the fact that the man they looked down on held a secret far bigger than any of their little schemes. And that secret is now in the hands of his only daughter. But here's the part that will break your heart before putting it back together. 3 weeks before he passed, Robert called his lawyer from his hospital bed. His voice was weak, but his mind was sharp as a razor. "Harold, listen closely. My son-in-law is about to walk out on my daughter. I see it in his eyes. He's looked at her like a burden since she got pregnant and I got sick. So I need you to make sure that when he leaves, when he thinks he's escaping poverty for something better, he never, ever touches a dime of what I'm leaving her. Put it in an irrevocable trust. I want this money to teach him a brutal lesson about betrayal. Make it untouchable. Because when my daughter finds out who she really is, I want her to know her father protected her, even from the grave. Listen, if you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or underestimated, hit that follow button right now, because Elena's story is about to show you that sometimes the people who walk out on you are actually doing you the biggest favor of your life. 2. Understand why we're here, how Elena's father knew exactly what David would do. We have to go back about 24 hours. To the moment everything fell apart and came together all at once. The hospital room smelled like bleach and the heavy breath of death. Elena had been frozen in that hard plastic chair for 16 straight hours. She gripped her father's hand, eyes glued to the monitor as the beeps and numbers slowed down, like a circuit running out of juice. Robert Thompson, or as the world knew him. Just another nameless electrician in a sea of blue-collar workers, lay under white sheets that made his skin look gray and fragile. But to her, he was always a giant. The man who taught her to ride a bike on Saturday mornings before his shift started. The man who showed up to every parent-teacher conference in his worn-out work gear, smelling like lead smoke and grease, sitting in those tiny chairs with pure pride. It didn't matter what he wore. He used to tell her every night, "You're an amazing girl. You deserve the best. You are loved more than anything in the world." And now he was leaving. The lung cancer was fast and brutal. 3 months from diagnosis to this moment. When the doctors found it, they said 6 months with aggressive treatment. He didn't even make it 12 weeks. Elena's phone buzzed in her palm. The screen blurred through her tears. Kate text from her husband, David, "Still at the hospital? My presentation got moved to tomorrow morning. Staying at Dave's tonight to prep." "Don't wait up." Elena's fingers froze on the screen. Her father's heart rate monitor beeped beside her, 72 beats per minute, weak but fighting. But her own heart was slamming against her ribs like it wanted to explode. A cold shiver ran down her spine, not from the hospital AC, but from the truth finally sinking in. She flipped the phone face down, her palms slick with cold sweat. She remembered this morning how he called her baby-brained just because she forgot to charge her phone. Her father was dying right here, and David was prepping for a presentation, which really meant he was with Victoria. She didn't text back. She just squeezed her father's hand tighter. His eyes fluttered open, still sharp, still her dad's eyes. "Elena," he whispered, his voice sounding like tearing paper. "My beautiful girl. I'm here, Dad. I'm right here. I need to tell you something." He struggled for breath, the ventilator hissing beside him. "It's very important. Listen closely." "Dad, save your strength. We can talk when you feel better." "No, baby." His hand gripped hers with a sudden, shocking strength. "No more pretending. It's time, and you need the whole truth." Elena's tears fell faster. "Dad, please." "In my old house," he continued, every word a massive effort. "The closet in the bedroom, tin box of old electrical parts at the bottom. There's a secret compartment. Inside is a key to ... a safe deposit box. Wells Fargo, box 347A. He coughed violently, his whole body shaking. "Everything you need is in there. Everything I should have told you years ago. I don't understand ... You will." Robert tilted his head toward the old watch on the bedside table. The hands were stopped at 3:47. "See that? I stopped it there on purpose. 3:47. When you get to the bank, remember 347A. And remember when David would hide your wallet and yell at you? His voice was faint but heavy with meaning. That wasn't an accident. Every time he did that, he was breaking your spirit, grooming you for the day he'd leave, and he's going to do it, honey. I saw it, especially when he snuck into this room last week. When you went out to get soup, he stood right here. Robert's voice trembled with pure rage. He looked at my oxygen tank and said in this fake, sympathetic voice, "Dad, every day you're here is another day Alina suffers. The bills, the meds, the new baby. I can't carry this. If you love her, don't make her go through this anymore." Then he had the nerve to say, "Just sign the house over to me. I'll sell it and take the weight off her, ... Single quotes, there wasn't a drop of humanity in his eyes, just cold calculation. Remember when you came back early? You saw him through the window and looked so confused? But I caught it all. Every word, every look." Robert took a painful breath. He looked at my oxygen tank and said, ... If you love her, don't make her suffer. Sign the house over. He thought he was being slick. But I saw it all. And I recorded everything. Robert's eyes searched for Elena's, and in them, she saw something she had never seen before. Fear, not the fear of death, but the fear of leaving her before she was ready to face the storm brewing within her treacherous husband. Promise me. Promise you'll go there. Promise you won't tell a soul until you understand everything. I promise. Don't tell." David, his voice suddenly grew hauntingly strong. "Never, under any circumstances, let that man know." Alina gasped, her heart skipping a beat. "What? Why, Dad?" "'Cause I see right through him, baby. I've seen the way he looks at you ever since you got pregnant, especially when he snuck in here to demand I sign the house over to him. He looks at you like a burden instead of a blessing." Robert's breath began to hitch, getting shorter by the second. "I added a clause to my will 3 weeks ago. A layer of protection for you. And for my grandson, Dad, what are you talking about?" But the rhythm of the machines had already shifted. The beeps grew further apart, dragging into silence. A nurse rushed in. "Mr. Thompson," she asked softly. "Do you want us to—" "No," Robert whispered. "No machines. Just me and my daughter." The nurse nodded and quietly backed out, clicking the door shut. Robert looked at Alina, and despite the agonizing pain, he smiled. "Do you know what the best day of my life was?" Alina shook her head, her voice lost in her throat. "The day your mother placed you in my arms. You were so tiny, so perfect. I looked at you and thought, this is it. This is why I was born. Not for money, not for power, not for all the things my billionaire family tried to force me to crave. Just you. Loving you was enough, honey." Elena's voice broke. Her mother had died, giving birth to her. She had never seen her face. Her mother was a teacher, beautiful, kind, the purest soul on earth. Robert's eyes seemed to drift toward a place only he could see. "My family hated her. They said she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't on our level. They gave me a choice, her ... or the inheritance." "What inheritance, Dad?" "I chose your mother, Alina. Every single time, I chose love. And when she passed away to bring you into this world, I chose you. I walked away from billions to raise you right, to teach you what actually matters." Elena's head was spinning. Billions. What the hell was he saying? "My real name is Robert Hartwell III. Every word was a battle against the pain. Hartwell Industries. My grandfather's empire. I was supposed to take over. I was supposed to marry some socialite my mother handpicked. But I met your mom at a charity event and I just knew. I knew she was my real life. So I left. I changed my name, took a job fixing circuits, and I never regretted it. Not once." "You mean you've been rich this whole time?" Elena couldn't wrap her head around it. Her father, the man who worked double shifts, the man who drove a beat-up car held together with duct tape. The man who made her peanut butter sandwiches every day because that's all they could afford. Not rich, baby, prosperous. There's a difference. Rich is what you have. Prosperity is who you are. He smiled through the agony. And you, my sweet girl, are the most prosperous person I've ever known. You have character, integrity, and a heart so big it scares me sometimes. I wanted you to grow up normal, to marry someone who loved you, not your bank account. I wanted you to know your own strength. Years after my parents passed, they left everything to me in a letter of regret and apology. But I chose to manage it from a distance through lawyers. Just to keep this simple life with you. His breath was heavy, now rattling in his chest, but I never stopped managing it. That money, I made it grow. I protected it for you. In that safe deposit box, the documents will explain everything. The trusts, the safeguards, and honey. He pulled her close with his final ounce of strength. Trust my plan. I know this is going to hurt. I know what's coming for your marriage and the darkness in David's heart. But trust the plan. What's coming, Dad? What do you mean? But his eyes were closing. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never weak. I've taken care of everything. I love you, Alina, more than all the money in the world. You are my greatest treasure. And then he was gone, just like that. The monitors flatlined into a long, haunting drone. That sound hit Alina's ears like the end of the world. She collapsed onto his chest, sobbing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. She gripped his old work shirt, breathing in his scent for the very last time. Soap, coffee, and the smell of pure love. She didn't hear the door open. She didn't hear the nurses walk in. She didn't hear them gently telling her it was time to let go. All she heard was the deafening silence where her father's voice used to be. In that shattered moment, time stood still. She could almost hear the wind rustling from those afternoons sitting on the back of his bike after work. Then a harsh mechanical vibration ripped through the stillness. Her phone was buzzing in her pocket. It was David. Hey, Dave's girlfriend is here too. We're gonna grab some drinks, probably be home late. You okay? By the way, where'd you lose your wallet this time? I looked everywhere this morning. Without me, you seriously couldn't keep track of anything for 24 hours. Alina stared at the text through a blur of tears, her father's words echoing in her mind. He looks at you like a burden instead of a blessing. Finally, she saw it. She saw him for exactly who he was. The rain poured down on Evergreen Cemetery as if the sky itself were mourning with her. Alina stood at the edge of her father's grave, her black dress soaked through. Her hand rested on her growing stomach, 28. Weeks along as the minister's words faded into background. Noise. She couldn't hear anything except the rain and the desperate scream in her heart. This can't be real. But the mahogany casket being lowered into the ground said otherwise. The hardy bronze marigolds she had placed on top were wilting under the downpour, their petals washing away into the mud. There were about 30 people, their old co-workers from the repair shop, few neighbors, some distant relatives who showed up out of obligation. People Alina barely recognized. Her father had lived quietly and loved deeply, and in leaving, he left a hole in the world so massive she felt like she'd never climb out of it. David stood beside her. But he was on another planet. He held a massive black umbrella over himself, completely leaving Alina's shoulder exposed to the freezing rain. He checked his phone every few minutes, his jaw tight with impatience. When the minister said, "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust," David let out a sigh loud enough for Alina to hear. She looked at him, really looked at him, and she saw a total stranger, the man who once swore to love her in sickness and in health. Couldn't even fake a shred of compassion for his wife, who had just lost everything after the service. As a sea of people blurred past to offer condolences, Alina couldn't remember a single face. David leaned into her ear, his breath smelling of coffee, but his words ice cold. "I gotta run." Urgent business with Victoria regarding the Apex Innovations project. Take a taxi home, okay? And don't be baby-brained and lose your house keys again. Alina turned slowly to look at him. Urgent business? David, we literally just put my father in the ground. I know, babe, and I'm sorry, but this contract has been in the works for a month. I can't miss this. Your wife just buried her father, she said, her voice hollow and dead. And you have urgent business. He looked uncomfortable but kept making excuses. Look, everyone's here for you. You'll be fine. See you at home later. He planted a quick, indifferent kiss on her forehead the way someone pats a puppy and turned toward the parking lot. Alina watched him disappear into the rain, holding a large umbrella to shield himself perfectly, leaving her standing in the freezing downpour. In that moment, something inside her shattered, something she didn't have a name for yet, in her pocket. Her father's envelope burned like hot coal. She hadn't dared to open it all. Not yet. But she had read enough to know there was a secret waiting at Wells Fargo, box 347A, and that secret could flip the entire script. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. I'm home. Need to talk. Important only for words, but Alina knew. In his hand, just as her father warned, there would be a tan folder that kind lawyers use to end marriages. The moment her father told her to be ready for had finally arrived. An older woman approached Mrs. Chen, who used to work at her father's repair shop. She pulled Alina into a tight hug, smelling of lavender. Your father was the best man I ever knew, she whispered. He talked about you every day. You were his entire world. Alina couldn't speak. She just nodded, letting her tears mix with the rain on her face. He told me something a few weeks ago, Mrs. Chen continued. He said, Helen, my daughter is stronger than she thinks. And soon she's going to need every ounce of that strength. I didn't get it then, but Alina, whatever you're facing, remember, whose blood you carry, it means you've got a spine of steel. The woman squeezed her hand and left. No matter what was coming, her father had seen it. Somehow, he knew. That night, Alina sat alone in her father's small apartment. She didn't move, just sat there, wrapped in his old flannel shirt, breathing in his fading scent, trying to process what he meant about safe deposit boxes. Protection, and her being a Hartwell dot. Her phone rang. David, hey, said, the sound of music and laughter drowning out his voice. Just checking in. You okay? Where are you? Just out with the team for dinner. You know, had to distress after the funeral. Was a heavy day. A heavy day? David, I buried my dad today. I know, babe. That's why I told you to get some sleep. His voice turned annoyed. By the way, where'd you lose your wallet again? I went to grab your card and couldn't find it. Without me around, your baby brain seriously couldn't keep track of anything for a day. Anyway, gotta go order food. See you tomorrow. He hung up. Alina stared at her phone, and that's when she saw it. An Instagram notification popped up. David had just been tagged in a photo. Her hands shook as she opened it. He was at a high-end restaurant tucked into a private corner. And right next to him, leaning in close, was Victoria Langva, CEO of Apex Innovations. Victoria was polished, wearing a power red dress. The caption read, Celebrating New Beginnings with my favorite person at David_Rich.Alina. Clicked on Victoria's profile, and there, just 3 photos back, were David and Victoria glowing, posted 6 weeks ago. While her father was dying and she was pulling all-nighters at the hospital, David had been living a double life. The next photo, David and Victoria hugging in front of the Eiffel Tower. Posted exactly 6 weeks ago, the day her father was admitted. The very day she had called David, her voice raspy. Can you come over? Dad, ... single quotes, and he replied, I'm in. An important meeting with Victoria. You can handle it. With her MBA-trained mind for data analysis, Alina quickly connected the dots. The late meetings, the times her wallet mysteriously vanished just so he had an excuse to belittle her, was all a sick, calculated game of gaslighting. The phone slipped from her hand. hitting the hardwood with a dry clack, the screen spiderwebbed. David's smiling face torn apart by the cracks. A sharp cramp ripped through her lower abdomen. Alina rushed to the bathroom, collapsing to her knees in front of the toilet. Gripping the cold porcelain, she threw up everything, not just food, but every ounce of trust, hope, and the 5 years of marriage she now realized was just a long, cruel performance. If Elena's pain hits you deep, hit subscribe to give her the strength to stand up. Don't let this woman fight this battle for justice alone. When the shaking finally stopped, she looked at herself in the mirror, eyes swollen. Pregnancy bump protruding under her father's oversized coat. She looked exactly like a broken woman. But then her gaze hardened. She remembered the code 347A and her father's instructions. Tomorrow, she was going to Wells Fargo. She was going to find out what her father meant when he said she was a Hartwell. Because right now, she wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was an analyst starting to see the glitches in David's game. Her phone buzzed. A text from David, by the way. I have something important to say when I get home. Those words that never bring anything good. Alina knew what was coming. She could feel it in her bones, the way you feel a storm rolling in. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly imagine, was that in exactly 18 hours, her entire world was going to flip in ways she never dreamed of. The next morning came both too fast and too slow. Alina hadn't slept. She spent the entire night on her father's sofa, clutching his coat, staring at the ceiling, waiting for David to come home. He never did. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text. Slept at Dave's. Coming by at 9. Need to talk? It's important. I placed my hand on my belly. It's my baby, a little boy. The doctor told me last week kicked hard, as if she could sense her mother's. Tara, I felt a chill, remembering the doctor's warning that at 28 weeks, I had to avoid any heavy emotional stress. It's okay, baby, I whispered. We're going to be fine, Grandpa promised. We just have to trust the plan. But honestly, I had no idea what the plan was. I felt my son Noah kick again, a rhythmic thud against my ribs that matched the pounding of my heart. At 8:30, I forced myself into the shower. I put on a clean, simple black dress, the same one I wore to the funeral yesterday. Everything else in my closet felt too bright, too full of life for the hollow shell I had become. I brewed a cup of coffee, but didn't touch it. I sat at the dining table and waited. David rolled in at 9:15. He was late on purpose, a classic power move. Looking back, I wonder how many of these little cruelties I ignored over the years. My MBA brain started connecting the dots of his psychological manipulation. He looked good, fresh, like he hadn't just buried his father-in-law. 24 hours ago, he was wearing an expensive cologne I'd never smelled on him before. For a split second, I wondered if he'd spent the whole night wrapped in Victoria. Morning, he said, eyes avoiding mine. How are you holding up? How do you think I'm holding up, David? I buried my father yesterday, right? I know. He sat across from me, and that's when I saw it. A folder. Tan professional, the kind of folder lawyers use to end lives. My heart started hammering against my chest. Look, there's no easy way to say this. He pushed the folder across the table. I want a divorce. The words hit me like a physical blow. Even though I knew it was coming, hearing them out loud made the air leave my lungs. What? I'm not happy, Alina. I haven't been for a long time. His voice sounded rehearsed, clinical. We've grown apart. You were so consumed with your dad's illness, and I need something else. I need a partner with status at Apex, not a wife who's constantly grieving. My father died yesterday. My voice didn't even sound like mine. Yesterday, David, and you come here today to ask for a divorce. The timing isn't ideal. I get that. Not ideal. I let out a broken laugh. I'm 7 months pregnant with your child. My father, my only family left, was just put in the ground. And you say the timing isn't ideal? I know it's tough, but dragging this out doesn't help anyone. He was using his sales pitch voice. the one he used to close big contracts. I've already talked to my lawyer. Can make this quick and clean. You keep the apartment. I'll pay child support. We both move on with our lives. Move on. My hands were shaking. With what? With who? I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and slid it toward him with her. David's face went stone cold. Alina, ... how long? My voice rose. How long have you been sleeping with your boss while I watched my father rot away? How long? It's not what you think. Your constant suspicion and that baby brain of yours is exactly why this marriage became suffocating. Then what is it? I was screaming now something I never did. Tell me, David, how does it feel to cheat on your pregnant wife while her father is dying of cancer? How does it feel to go from his funeral to a celebration with your mistress, huh? Don't make this ugly. His jaw tightened. I didn't plan for this. Victoria and we have a connection on a level you and I never had. She's successful, ambitious. She has status. She understands the life I crave. Every word was a serrated blade. Then what am I? I gasped. What was I to you? You were my wife. It's past tense. You're a good person, Elena. Really, but you'll never be enough for the life I'm building. You're just a mid-level analyst, and she's my key to the elite world. The sheer cruelty of it silenced me. I'm carrying your baby. I know. And I'll support the kid financially. I'm not a monster, but I can't stay in a marriage that makes me miserable just because of biology. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Sign the papers. My lawyer will be in touch. And don't lose your wallet or keys again. I'm tired of cleaning up your messes. I'll be by this weekend to grab my stuff. David, please. I hated the sound of my own begging. Hated that a part of me still wanted him to stay. He looked at me, really looked into my eyes, and what I saw was worse than anger. It was pity. You'll be fine, Alina. You're strong. You'll figure it out. And then he walked. Out just like that, leaving me 7 months pregnant, freshly orphaned, with divorce papers on the table and a future as dark as a black hole. I sat in the silence, and my father's voice echoed. He looks at you like a burden. The phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Alina. I'm Victoria. I know this is a tough time for you, but David and I are in love. We expect you to handle this discreetly and cooperate during this transition. We need to focus on growing Apex and won't tolerate any scandals. We want to move on with our lives as quickly as possible. Thanks for understanding. The audacity. It was a level of shamelessness that left me breathless. Something shifted deep inside me. Something became ice cold, sharp, and crystal clear. I grabbed my keys, threw on my father's old jacket, and drove straight to Wells Fargo. It was time to find out exactly what my father meant when he said, I'd never be weak again. The Wells Fargo building was ancient and grand, with marble floors and ceilings that seemed to touch the sky. I walked up to the information desk, my pregnancy bump leading the way, and said, I need to access safe deposit box 347A. The clerk's fingers flew across the keyboard. Then she stopped, looking at me with an entirely different expression. Wait here one moment. I need to get the manager. A man in an expensive suit appeared within minutes. Ms. Thompson, I'm Gerald Whitmore, the branch manager. Please, follow me. He led me into a private room, used 2 keys to open the box, and quietly excused himself. Inside there was only one large envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. The first thing I saw was a letter in my father's handwriting. At the bottom of the page, a hurried note. My sweet girl, the only password for everything is your MBA graduation date. The day I wore my worn-out work gear and was the proudest man alive. Remember, June 15th, 2015. My heart tightened. The memory of that pure joy only made the current pain sting harder. I also found a USB drive labeled Video watch when necessary. I didn't open it. I decided to save it for the right moment. But beneath that were papers. So many papers. Stock certificates, property deeds, and bank statements with numbers I couldn't even process. I read the letter first. My dearest Alina, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're probably confused, maybe scared, and definitely grieving. Ma'am, so sorry I'm not there to explain this in person, to hold you as you take this in, to see your face when you realize who you truly are. But honey, it's time you knew the truth about the Hartwell family. It's about me. And about everything I've protected you from, Mand. Protected for you all these years. I read the entire letter. Tears streaming down my face. My mind racing, too. Digest what my father was revealing. My father was Robert Hartwell III, the sole heir to a $4 billion empire. He had walked away at 23 to marry my mother, the woman his family deemed not on their level. He changed his name, took a job as an ordinary electrician, and built a life based on real love instead of money. But he never gave up his inheritance. He just stayed hidden, quietly managing it through lawyers, letting it grow, protecting it for me, and 3 weeks before he died. Knowing exactly what David would do, he restructured everything. He placed it all into an irrevocable trust that David could never touch, even while we were still married. The total asset value was now $6.3 billion. I read that number over and over, 6.3 billion, with a B. My hands were trembling. It wasn't about the money. It was the realization that my father had lived that simple life for 32 years just to teach me a lesson. He could have given me anything, but he chose to give me something far more valuable: character. The cold numbers on the paper blurred, replaced by a movie of the past playing in my head. The quiet room suddenly filled with memories. The smell of peanut butter on white bread. The sound of the old car engine every morning, and my father's calloused hands gently stroking my hair. Now, through the eyes of a data analyst. These dry numbers turned into a symphony of silent love. Every share, every property was a note in the safeguard. My father had composed for 35 years for my mother and me. The end of the letter made me sob. Out loud, I know what David is going to do, honey. Seen it in his eyes for months. He's going to leave you. It's going to hurt you in ways that make you doubt everything. He'll mock you for a lost wallet or call you useless. But the truth is, he's not fit to stand beside you. But I need you to understand one thing. Him leaving you is the greatest gift he could ever give you. Because now you will know. You will know that when he chose to walk away, he had no idea what he just lost. He left you because he thought you were poor, because he thought you were weak. It's because he thought he found something better. And Alina, my beautiful girl, I need you to let him go. Let him marry his mistress. Let him build his pathetic little life. And when you're ready, when you've healed, show him, show her, and show the world who Alina Thompson Hartwell really is, not with cruelty, not with cheap revenge, but by building a life so brilliant, so meaningful, and so powerful that they spend the rest of their lives choking on regret. That is the Hartwell way. We don't destroy our enemies. We simply become so great that they destroy themselves. Trust the plan, daughter. I love you more than all the billions in the world. Love, Dad. I sat in that room for 2 hours, rereading every document, every letter, every piece of my father's secret life. Then I pulled out my phone and called the law firm on the business card attached to the file, Hartwell and Associates. A man picked up immediately. Hello, Miss Thompson. We've been waiting for your call. I'm Harold Ashford, your father's lawyer and also your cousin. Actually, your father was my Uncle Robert. I'd very much like to meet you to explain everything and begin the asset. Transfer is tomorrow? Okay, tomorrow? My voice was hollow. My husband just asked for a divorce this morning. I know. Harold's voice was a soft comfort. Your father predicted this. He had me prep a specific strategy for this exact scenario. That divorce paper, David, is so eager for you to sign. That's the key. It's how we cut him out of the Hartwell empire completely. Alina, I'm so sorry for your loss. Uncle Robert was the finest man I ever knew, but I promise you, he's still protecting you. Everything is ready. It's going to be okay. I hung up and just sat there in the silence, hand on my belly, mind spinning. David wanted out because he thought I had nothing. Because he thought Victoria, with her six-figure salary and designer labels, was the upgrade. That night in my dad's old place, I sat at the kitchen table. I opened our wedding album. There was David pinning a boutonniere on his suit, smiling. That radiant smile that now just made me want to gag. My thumb hovered over his contact in my phone. For a split second, I thought, what if he comes back? Suddenly, a powerful kick from inside jolted me. The baby was restless, like she was saying, "Mom, don't you dare." Tears fell, but they weren't for him. I deleted his number. My phone buzzed a text from Victoria. "You should accept reality. David and I are house hunting." I smiled bitterly and typed back, "I wish you both all the happiness you deserve." Then I blocked her. He has no clue he just turned his back on a massive fortune. And tomorrow I start learning what that actually means. But first I have to sign those papers. I have to let him go. Not because I'm weak, but because my father taught me something David will never understand. Real power doesn't need to scream. It waits, it watches. And it strikes when the time is right. I drove home, signed every single page David left behind, and slipped them into an envelope for his lawyer. Then I opened my laptop and booked a flight to New York for the next morning. Harold offered a private jet, but I turned it down. I wasn't ready for that world yet. I needed one more day to be a regular person. One last day before everything changed forever. My phone buzzed. "David, signed yet?" Typed back, "Yeah, you're free." He replied instantly, "Thanks for being reasonable. Anyway, hope you find happiness." I stared at those words, the casual cruelty. The assumption that he was doing me a favor and I should be grateful. I deleted it without a word. Then I checked Victoria's Instagram one last time. The latest post was them at a jewelry store. Caption, "When you know, you know. Engaged. New beginnings. Engaged. On the day he asked for a divorce." On the day I had just buried my father, something shifted in my soul. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't even pain. It was something colder, more patience, something my father spent a lifetime teaching me. Even if I didn't know the lessons were for this, it was pride in the face of malice. Calm under pressure. The long game. I commented on the post, "Congratulations. I wish you both all the happiness you deserve." I meant every syllable literally. Within an hour, the post blew up. Everyone we knew, people who knew I'd lost my dad and my husband in the same week, swarmed the comments in a rage. Victoria's page became a battlefield. I turned off my phone and went to sleep in my dad's apartment, wrapped in his coat, hand on my stomach. Grandpa was a smart man. I whispered to my baby. He knew exactly what he was doing. We just have to trust the plan. Outside, thunder rolled. A storm was coming. But Alina Thompson Hartwell was ready to meet it. The law firm of Hartwell and Associates took up the entire 47th floor of the Sterling Tower in Manhattan. When I stepped out of the elevator the next morning, it was all glass brushed steel. And the kind of silence that only serious money can buy. But right before I walked into that building, fate played its hand out in the parking garage. I stepped out of a taxi, 31 weeks pregnant, clutching my simple handbag. I was smoothing out my dress when I heard the click of high heels echoing. Victoria and David were stepping out of a brand new jet black Mercedes. Our eyes locked. For a second, Victoria looked me up and down from my worn-out flats to my old maternity dress and smirked. "Are you here for the cleaning job?" Her voice was soft but dripping with venom. "This floor is for VIPs and executives only." David stood behind her, hands in his pockets, refusing to look me in the eye. He pulled a $20 bill out of his crocodile skin wallet and tossed it onto the ground near my feet. The bill landed in a small puddle. "Take that and go home." Don't make a scene and embarrass me here. He pointed at my left hand, where my tarnished silver wedding band still sat. And do me a favor, take off that cheap ring. I don't want anyone here getting the wrong idea. I stood still, looking at the $20 lying in the dirty water. I didn't bend down. I just gave them a small, tight smile. Thanks for the concern, but I think you two should go inside. First, they're waiting for you. Victoria glanced at David, both of them scoffing before strutting toward the VIP elevator. I stayed put, letting them go ahead. I took the next elevator and hit the button for 47. When the doors slid open, Harold Ashford was already there, wearing a warm smile. Ready, Alina? Shh. I nodded, and my gaze was different. Now a strange, quiet peace had taken over. Yeah, I'm ready. The receptionist looked up, and her face changed instantly. Ms. Hartwell Thompson. I corrected her automatically. She led me down a hallway lined with portraits of men in suits with stern expressions, the Hartwells, my ancestors. And then I saw it at the very end. A portrait of a young man with kind eyes and a smile that looked like it was about to break out. My father. Young, wealthy, before he walked away from all of this. He led me into a private conference room, his eyes softening but remaining serious. Before we talk numbers, Alina, I need you to know the truth about your father. He wasn't just Robert Thompson, the electrician. He was Robert Hartwell III, the sole heir to the Hartwell dynasty. Harold spoke slowly, letting the weight of the words sink in. 35 years ago, after his parents passed away and left him everything, he walked away. He changed his name and abandoned a life of silk and gold just to marry your mother, the true love of his life. He chose to be an ordinary electrician to teach you about character and love, rather than letting you grow up in the shadow of a bank account. But he never walked away from the responsibility. He quietly managed and grew that massive fortune through an anonymous trust, and I've acted as his proxy. That trust holds the controlling interest in Apex Innovations, the very company where David and Victoria work. They had no idea the father-in-law they despised was actually their boss. And now, Alina, it's all yours. He led me to a nearby room, where two other people were waiting, a sharp-looking woman and a young man with a laptop. This is Patricia Whitmore, your financial advisor, and David Chen, your chief accountant. They've been managing your father's assets for 15 years. They work for you. For the next few hours, they walked me through the empire. After the briefing, Harold paused. But your father didn't just leave you money. He left his heart. He handed me a USB drive. These are 47 audio logs your father recorded in the last 3 months. He recorded every doubt, every cruel word David said that night. I listened to them all. My father's voice filled the room. July 14th. Today, David lost Alina's car keys again and screamed at her. I found the keys in his coat pocket, ... I recorded it. Every time he does this, I record it. August 3rd. Alina cried a lot tonight. She doesn't know that I know. I couldn't stop the tears. I remembered the hospital. I spent every day hand-making. Chicken soup with lotus seeds, his favorite, bringing it to his bedside. I sat there for hours, feeding him, whispering stories about the baby. Meanwhile, David always refused to take a shift. Important meeting with the boss, he'd say. In reality, he was with Victoria on weekend work retreats. I saw their private Instagram stories. Decompressing after a stressful week. The numbers they showed me were staggering. Controlling shares in 17 major corporations, commercial real estate in 12 states. A stock portfolio worth $1.8 billion, a $400 million art collection, and $600 million in liquid cash. The total valuation of the Hartwell Trust, $6.3 billion. Your father restructured everything 3 weeks before he died, Harold said quietly. The day after David visited him in the hospital, I froze. David visited him. He told me he couldn't leave work. Harold's face hardened. He spent 15 minutes complaining about the hospital bills, complaining that the pregnancy was bad timing, and whining about his work stress. He even asked if your father had life insurance to offset the financial burden. Your father heard every word. The next day, he called me. He wanted to make absolutely sure David never touched a cent. That divorce settlement he forced you to sign was the final piece of the puzzle. By signing it, David voluntarily waived all rights to any shared assets in exchange for the freedom he wanted so badly. I felt the tears rolling down my cheeks. My dad knew. He saw it all. Harold pushed one last letter across the table. David didn't leave because you weren't good enough. He left because he wasn't on your level. Now stand up. Not for revenge, but because you are a Hartwell. Build something good. Help people. And when David finally sees who you've become, just smile. His regret is not your burden. Living brilliantly is the ultimate comeback. I wiped my eyes. I want to help women in crisis, single mothers, people who feel weak and alone. I want to. Start now. Your father already established a $500 million fund for that. Patricia said softly, "It's ready whenever you are." Then, I'm ready. But first, I want to host a dinner for potential partners and board members. I pulled up Victoria's LinkedIn profile. She was the senior marketing director at Apex Successful. Well connected, exactly the kind of person a new foundation would want to meet, right? Harold gave a knowing smile. Along with her new fiancé, of course. 3 months later, after the divorce was finalized and I had officially taken the reins, an emergency conference was called at Apex Innovations headquarters regarding the future of the company. David and Victoria were buzzing, convinced this was their promotion party. They had no idea the storm was already overhead. In the grand hall filled with 200 executives, David straightened his tie, whispering to Victoria, "After this, you nominate me for the VP slot. Then we can go public with us." Victoria nodded, her eyes fixed on the empty chairman's seat. The giant screen behind the stage flickered to life. Instead of a new project, the room was blasted with every incriminating affair email. The audio of David bullying Robert in his hospital bed and Robert's final video will dot in the video. He was wearing his stained technician's uniform while sitting in the chairman's high-backed leather chair. He looked at the camera and said, "Sweetheart, real power isn't about this chair. It's about being able to bend down and fix a broken circuit or stand up and lead an empire and keep your soul kind and intact." Just as it always was. Robert paused, his gaze turning razor sharp. And now David, the son-in-law I once trusted. The footage cut to hospital surveillance from exactly 3 weeks before he passed. David was standing by Robert's bed, checking his watch every 10 seconds. "Looking annoyed, David. I know you're watching. I recorded everything, not just the times you hid Elena's wallet. Not just the lies about work, but also that call you made to Victoria from the ICU waiting room while Elena was sleeping from exhaustion. The audio played. It's crystal clear. I'm at the hospital with the old man. Boring as hell. But good news, I just convinced him to sign the house over. When we get the cash, we're going to Hawaii, babe. Don't worry, Elena won't know. She's baby-brained now. She thinks I'm a hero trying to provide for the family. You thought I was in a coma?" Robert's voice continued. But I heard every word. "And I know about your plan with Victoria after I die. You intended to use your rights as a husband to force Elena to sign over her inheritance, too, to protect her from financial stress. You mapped it all out in an email. On July 15th, the day I was admitted for the second time." Robert's eyes on the screen grew cold. "And one more thing, David. Remember when you asked if this poor electrician had life insurance? You told me if you have a policy, at least Elena and the baby will have some money when you kick off. You were calculating your payout while I was gasping for air. It wasn't because you cared for Elena. It was to see how much you could collect. From my death, and David." Apex Innovations, the company where you work and where Victoria is marketing director, is a Hartwell company. 3 weeks before I died, all controlling shares were moved into a trust only Alina can access. That means, David, you are working for your wife. Victoria, you work for Alina, and both of you are fired by the owner you tried to scam. The hall went dead silent. David stood up, his face ashen. This is a conspiracy. It's not over yet, David. A familiar voice cut through the air from the back. Kaylina walked in, wearing a sharp navy power suit. That $20 bill you threw at me in the parking lot this morning? I donated it to a fund for betrayed women. She clicked a remote and the screen switched to Victoria's email. Ensure all evidence leads back to David. He is the perfect sacrificial lamb. Victoria let out a blood-curdling scream. No way. The ghost chairman was that old electrician. David, you told me she was a broke, useless nobody. Alina looked them both in the eye, calm as a deep ocean. My father didn't just fix broken circuits. He built an empire, specifically to protect me from cold-blooded predators like you. David Richards and Victoria Lang are terminated effective immediately for gross ethical violations. Adultery and conspiracy to embezzle company assets after the meeting. Alina directed HR and legal to process the terminations according to company bylaws. Backed by legally obtained evidence of their plot, they scrambled to the garage. Victoria lost it completely. Oh my God, David, you walked away from a billionaire. You divorced our boss for me. She ripped off her engagement ring and threw it at his face. We're done. David stood alone in the dark concrete garage upstairs. Alina was surrounded by board members pledging their support. She felt her baby kick strong and healthy. Harold walked up with a knowing smile. They left in a hurry. Victoria is currently screaming her head off in the basement. Alina felt ... nothing. No spite. No triumph. Just a strange, beautiful peace. My dad always said the best revenge is to build a life so brilliant that your enemies destroy themselves. Just watching you live it. He'd be so proud of you. I know, she whispered. I can feel him. A few weeks later, on her due date, Alina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Noah James Thompson Hartwell. A name built on a legacy of love and ironclad strength. She let David visit the baby under strict supervision, because she believed her son deserved to know his roots, even if his father had proven himself unworthy of being in the story. Victoria moved to Boston to escape the scandal, eventually filing for bankruptcy and taking a low-level job where, no one knew her name or the sound of her scream in that parking garage. Victoria, in a faded server uniform, was trembling as she wiped a coffee spill at a local cafe in Boston, when a group of successful women sat at the next table, discussing a new project by Hartwell and Legacy. She hurriedly lowered her head to avoid them. She realized that the ladder of power she had once climbed at any cost had been dismantled by her own hands. That night, in her cramped, rented room, her phone vibrated a message from her 16-year-old daughter, Emily. Mom, I found the article about what happened today. Dad told me never to become like you. I hope you can live better. It's not about being rich or poor. It's about ... being kinder. Victoria watched the message blur through her tears. She had lost everything and, worst of all, she had lost her daughter's respect. One morning, while Alina was reviewing plans for the Sunshine House, Harold entered the office with a serious expression, holding a white envelope. An offer from David, Harold said, placing it on the desk. He offers to waive all legal rights to Noah and asks for nothing in return except a letter of recommendation. Alina frowned. A letter of recommendation. Yes, he wants you to write a letter confirming he worked at Apex Innovations with good competence without mentioning ... other things. Harold sighed. He says he can't get a job anywhere because his reputation is completely ruined. He added, tell Alina, this isn't a negotiation. This is a plea. I just want a chance to start over in a different city where no one knows who I am. Alina looked out the window. Under the morning sun, Noah was taking his first steps in the garden with his nanny. Inside her, a silent internal battle raged. If she refused, David would forever be a failure. And one day, Noah would grow up and ask, "Mom, why didn't you give my father a chance?" But if she agreed, would David truly change? Or would he just start a new play of deception with someone else? And what would Noah think when he grew up and learned his mother helped his father escape the consequences? Harold pulled a small object from his pocket, a crumpled $20 bill. The very one David had thrown at her feet in the basement parking lot that day. "I picked it up after you left," he said softly. "I think you should keep it. Not to remember the humiliation, but to remember that a person's value is never measured by the money others throw at them." Alina held the $20, her fingers lightly tracing the wrinkled surface. On it, in faint pencil, she had written, "The day I knew who I was." Then she opened her wallet and pulled out Noah's first ultrasound, the crumpled photo she had carried through the days her father was dying. On the back, the handwritten words were still clear. "March 15th, first time hearing your heartbeat. His dad was busy having dinner with the boss." Two pieces of evidence lay side by side on the table: humiliation and love, betrayal and life, the past and the future. Part of Elena, the part that once loved David truly, the part that believed he was a good man, wanted to write that letter. She wanted to believe people could change, that everyone deserves a second chance. She wanted to give Noah a father who wasn't a total failure. But then she looked down at the $20 and the ultrasound, and she knew forgiveness does not mean forgetting, and it certainly does not mean helping the person who hurt you escape their consequences easily. "My father once said," Alina spoke slowly, her voice reflective, "true strength is not in punishment, but in the power to choose whether to forgive or not." But forgiveness doesn't mean being foolish. And it certainly doesn't mean facilitating the repetition of cruelty. She looked Harold straight in the eye. "We will not write any letter of recommendation. But we will not actively destroy his opportunities either. Let the market decide. If David truly has talent, he will find a way. If not, that was his choice from the start when he chose betrayal and cruelty." She folded the $20 carefully and put it in her wallet right next to the ultrasound. "One day, when Noah grows up, I will tell him about this $20. And I will teach him that his value doesn't lie in what others think of him, but in the person he chooses to become. And never let anyone, including parents, dictate that value." She placed her hand on her stomach, an old habit, even though Noah was already born. "Give me 24 hours to think this through," she whispered. More to herself than to Harold, Alina turned her Hartwell and legacy fund into a symbol of change. One of her first and most meaningful projects was turning her old house, filled with painful memories of David, into the Sunshine House, a shelter and comprehensive support center for betrayed and lost single mothers. She used all the proceeds from selling their former shared home, which David later tried in vain to reclaim, to operate it. Once David walked past the old street, saw the sign "Sunshine House, where peace begins," and saw women being helped, walking out with rare smiles. He felt even more pained, realizing he had lost not just a wife, but the chance to be part of something truly meaningful. 200 women were helped in the first year alone. Rent paid, hope restored. 5 years later, little Noah started kindergarten at the very school where his grandfather used to work. David appeared to see him off, watching the boy confidently run into the school. He now looked old and tired. His career at Apex Innovations had vanished into thin air after that fateful night. "He's wonderful," he said softly. "Yes," Alina agreed. "It's perfect." He hesitated. "Alina, I know I have no right, but 6 months after being fired, I went to the Sunshine House. I wanted to apologize, to come back, to take care of our child. I've changed, ... Alina looked at him, her gaze serene. She pulled an old envelope from her bag and handed it to him. Inside was the first crumpled ultrasound photo. On the back, her handwriting read, "March 15th, first time hearing your heartbeat. His dad was busy having dinner with the boss. When he was still in my womb, you abandoned him. You didn't care enough for even a single ultrasound. You no longer have the right to say those words. He will decide about his father for himself when he grows up. As for you, live with the choices you made. She turned away, walking toward Noah, who was waving to a friend. David stood there, clutching the ultrasound photo, realizing that his regret now wasn't about the money. It was the profound agony of a man who realized he had thrown away a diamond to pick up a grain of sand. He wanted to tell her he had changed, that he finally understood everything, that he was willing to trade it all for a second chance. But Elena's eyes were fixed only on her son. And David realized she no longer cared about his existence at all. She had won not by destroying him, but by building a life so full and meaningful that his presence or absence didn't matter in the slightest. 5 years later, Elena stood in the morning sun, holding her son Noah as her father's words echoed. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never weak. The sunshine house built from the very home that held her painful memories had become a sanctuary for hundreds of women. She smiled peacefully. Dad, I understand now. Real power doesn't lie in wealth, but in the will to rise from the ashes and use a once broken heart to build shelters for others. True prosperity is measured by love. And those who leave you are simply making room for the life you were always meant to have. So, if you have ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or told that you aren't good enough, remember Elena's story. Sometimes the people who walk out of your life are actually doing you the greatest favor of all. Now, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Chicago, New York, London, or anywhere else? Leave your location in the comments below. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that you are stronger than you think, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Because you are never weak, you just haven't realized it yet. Thank you for watching, and remember, the best revenge is living a life that is truly brilliant.